we are not your grandmothers and grandfathers in NAACP. And I know some chapters that's what I think of. We wanted to make this organization that already existed, that had a name, to see if we could make it work more effectively for justice in our community. Good evening, everybody. We're here for another episode of Race, Religion, and Politics. Race, religion, and politics are the things that affect our lives, and those are the things that we're often told not to talk about, but these are the things that we are going to talk about. We have some issues with the Crittenden County NAACP and the West Memphis School District that we want to get into in just a minute. I'm Shabaka, Afrika, and this is, I'm president of the Crittenden County NAACP, and this is Ms. Rubye Johnson. She's vice president of the Crittenden County NAACP. So a lot of people have a lot of questions about why we've decided to oppose the proposed 7.5 millage tax increase for the school district of West Memphis, and we'd like to have an opportunity to tell our side of it. We've got the news media here. Our state president, Mr. Frank Shaw, is here. We have some other members of the Crittenden County NAACP that are also here, and perhaps we'll hear from them a little bit later. I think that some people have some questions of us. If you'd like to ask questions first, we'd be glad to respond to it. But what we wanted to say was that we're opposed to the millage rate increase, not just because we are against building new schools, not just because we are opposed to raising taxes, but we are opposed because there's a lack of diversity, equity, and fairness and justice in the West Memphis School District. The West Memphis School District is the largest, has the largest budget of any school district in Northeast Arkansas. They have a budget now approaching $60 million. 85% of the school population are made up of black young people, but less than 35% of the teachers are black. We're looking at literally tens of millions of dollars that go out to vendors and contractors, and we get the black community gets next to nothing. We believe that that's not only unfair, but that's unsustainable in terms of the economics in our area. This area can only grow and prosper when everybody has an equal say in it. The West Memphis School District historically has refused to discuss these kinds of things with us. In fact, just this past Tuesday evening, we were at the old St. Paul Baptist Church on 8th Street, and the pastor, as well as one of the other ministers in the house, asked Mr. John Collins, who's our superintendent, a direct question. And the direct question was, are there any monies, is there any consideration for black contractors? And they both said, goes to the highest bidder, and they didn't even discuss it. To be truthful with you, there are no measures in place to make sure that African Americans and women have an equal share in the contracting and in the vendors. In fact, we probably wouldn't be as opposed to this if we could sit down with them and discuss plans to hire more black teachers, to recruit more black teachers, and as well as to make sure that we have more black contractors and vendors. They say, well, you know, can't find any. Well, that's not true. There's never been an effort. I've been dealing with the West Memphis School District since back in the 80s, and we've never been able to get a reasonable answer or response to that. So our objective is to oppose it until such time that we can actually have a conversation about equity, fairness, and justice. We're talking a lot recently about white supremacy and white nationalism. And almost always we focus on the crazy guy down on the corner of the group with the swastikas and the KKK signs. But the central power of white supremacy is in the controlling of the manufacture and the distribution of goods and services. The school system is a major servicer, and we are not represented equitably in that governmental agency. The school system is a governmental agency which takes in millions of dollars, and we are there as students. But in terms of participating in the economic wealth, a few white men in Crittenden County manipulate the wealth. They want to build new schools. We'd love to have new schools, but new schools don't educate children. But in fact, they want to raise our taxes in order to build these new schools so that they can then come in and dominate the wealth potential because they control it. And we know this. We're not under any false illusions. This is a fact. The West Memphis School District has not done a good job of educating our children. Our test scores are not well. Our graduation rates are not where they ought to be. Now, Ms. Johnson, our vice president, has spent 30 plus years as an educator in the West Memphis School District, and I think she has some thoughts that she wants to share.
Some of the biggest things that we find when we've been talking to the community is that we have the majority of our students that are African American, but we have on our school board, which is 7 members, and there's only 2 blacks and there's 7 members, so 5 are white. The lines have been drawn and manipulated so that they can have the majority of the people on the school board, but they're not representing the number of students that we have. We've also, in the years, have complained about the graduation rate. We notice how the 3 junior high schools filter into the high school, and the sophomore classes are usually very large, but when they get to become seniors, there's a dropout rate, and that's because when we talk to the young people, they are suspended a lot, they are not making the grade, they can't pass this subject, so we are not doing a really great job of educating our students in the West Memphis School District. So these are all things that we are looking at. The reading scores are horrible, so we have a lot of students that just drop out. So we are talking to the people, and the people are very concerned about that. And once a thing that our president said, and we want to make sure that we let you know that we are not against new schools, because we know that attracts people into our community, but we have to do a better job with educating, and we also have to do a better job of including everyone in the process.
We need to be able to have a meaningful dialogue with our school board, our school superintendent and his staff. We need to talk about equity and fairness in hiring and fairness in contracting. And then there needs to be in place a way in which some sort of compliance system so that the school system can be held accountable. We have no way to hold the school district accountable to how it spends its money. For those people who've grown up here, we have a magazine article from 1949, Look magazine, and the title of the story is Look and Be Ashamed. And it shows how the West Memphis School District is spending $18 a year on the education of the black, or at that time, the colored or Negro students, and $150 a year on the white students. And it shows a brand new school, which is, for those people that are familiar, what is now West Junior High was the senior high school. It's even got a gravel road out in front of it. But and there's a corresponding picture which shows black children sitting around a pot-bellied stove at one of the old churches down on 8th Street. And so there has been a history of unfair and inequitable spending by the West Memphis School District in black or African American communities. Even back in the 80s with the NAACP, we were complaining about their failure to put air conditioning in schools in the black community. And we had a hell of a time in getting them to do just that. So now the arrogance is that now they need the black community, which is over 70%, to now vote for a tax raise so that them and their friends can make all the money off of the money that they raised to build new schools. And so if that's not white supremacy at its core, economic exploitation and manipulation at its core, I don't know what is. Now, some people have asked about black leaders. Well, we've talked to many church leaders, fraternities, sororities. We've talked to many people and groups in our community, and most people agree with us. They're not opposed to building new schools. They're not necessarily opposed to raising taxes, although I'm not in love with raising taxes, but we understand. but with no accountability, no. Now, I've sat and talked with Mr. Holmes, who is a member of the superintendent's staff. He's one of the assistant superintendents. He, according to him, he's asked Superintendent John Collins to speak with us. He never has. And he's even come by and said, did he speak with you? He came by and spoke with us at length, Mr. Holmes, and agreed that there was concerns and work that ought to be done, but he had no answer other than, will you support it? And I said, no, we're not. And when you've talked with us and we sit down and we come up with a plan and we can agree that there needs to be a plan to hire more black teachers. So in the past, they've said that they couldn't find them. We don't believe that. They said the same thing about black police officers, but now because of our agitation, yes, and with the new black mayor, almost half of our police force now is now black. They didn't just fall down with yesterday's rain. If you want more black teachers, they have to go out. You have to go out and recruit them, as well as you can start programs with young people in the 10th grade and start encouraging them in the areas of math and science and elementary education. This isn't rocket science. And then this is how you seed your community, because right now we have a brain drain. Because their economic opportunities are closed to the few that run things in this area, most of our young people, when they graduate from West Memphis or Earl or Marion, they leave with, and go off to college, get their professional degrees, and they go off to Houston, New York, Chicago, and other places. So we actually have a brain drain. We really need to bring those people back here, and you can only do that by having a just and equitable system, which women, blacks, and by the way, I hate the word minority. I know we use that word often, and others have equal say and equal participation. And as long as we have the white supremacy system in place, that's not going to happen. Another point, a couple of 2 or 3 years ago, when the superintendent, Mr. Kessinger, who had been superintendent here for 40 plus years, when he passed away, they had a call and had meetings. They let the community have an input into the selection of a new superintendent. Well, we knew that was a joke and was a fake. What they wound up hiring, they had 2 black superintendents who applied for the job, for the superintendent's job. Both men were from West Memphis, graduates of our schools. One was in Little Rock, in North Little Rock school system. The other one was in Memphis school system. Both had doctorate degrees. But they chose the current superintendent over these 2 men. Why did they do that? I can tell you why. Because they were looking for someone to manage their money. They couldn't allow $50 to $60 million to be in the hands of black folk here in this area because it would undermine the wealth potential that a few white men have always manipulated and monopolized from all the way back to slavery. So we are against it. We are sending messages out to our churches and other organizations and ask them to oppose it. Early voting starts on the 3rd. The voting day is the 10th of September, 3rd of September, and then the 10th of September for the main voting day. We're asking you to go out and vote no. It's not enough to just stay home. You have to go to the polls and say no to this. A large part of West Memphis is literally in Marion School District. For people in this area that are familiar, everything north of Dover Road is in the Marion School District. That means that McDonald's, Burger King, Kroger, Walmart, the Southland, the new hospital, all that's in the Marion School District. So for years you wonder why Marion was building state-of-the-art schools and West Memphis schools seem to be falling in. That's part of the problem. You're looking at anywhere from $5 to $7 million a year that leaves West Memphis going to Marion. And we've even considered and may be looking at filing a federal lawsuit to redraw that school district line that should have been redrawn a long time ago. My understanding is that it was first drawn in 1953 when West Memphis didn't go that far. But in the past, when we've approached the late Mr. Kessinger and the current superintendent, we've never been able to get a straight answer as to why that school district line has not been redrawn. Theoretically, you could go to the Arkansas Board of Education and request they redraw it, or you can file a federal lawsuit. And we feel quite confident that the federal courts are going to hold that the West Memphis city limits and the West Memphis school district should run reasonably concurrently, all things being equal. And so that's another thing that we're looking at, and that's something that the West Memphis school district will not respond to, and we don't understand why. Why? There is enough money. There's more money that would be captured by redrawing the school district than going up on our millage taxes. If you say no, the West Memphis school district is going to lose $22.4 million, according to the superintendent. And I said, well, we'll just have to lose it. This is about power, and they're not, as Frederick Douglass says, that power never relinquishes power without a demand. It never has and it never will. So we're clear about that. Now, we're not angry. We understand that this is what has to happen for change to occur. The civil rights movements and various other movements have occurred because people got out and agitated and organized and scratched, made some people angry, all those things. And so, and we're sure that we're making some people angry, but we're already angry. So that's okay, you'll be okay. We are not your grandmothers and grandfathers in NAACP, and I know some chapters that's what I think of. We wanted to make this organization that already existed, that had a name, to see if we could make it work more effectively for justice in our community.